Hello.
How are we all doing?
We're great. Welcome, welcome. I see so many new faces. So excited.
Hello.
Hello. This is fantastic. Look at these new faces and old faces.
Oh,
I love it.
yeah, look at this.
So exciting.
All right, mute.
Fantastic.
Great. All right. We ready? All right.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today on our Continuing the Race series. Tiffany and I are so excited to have you here. My name is Suman Kapoor. I'm CEO of Well Balanced Solutions, and I'm here with my dear friend and co-host, Tiffany Castano, CEO of Sefer LLC. Every Friday, we meet here, 12 p.m. noon, recorded and unrecorded sessions. Really quickly, before we hop in, a couple of housekeeping things. So this session is being recorded, so please be aware of that. Mute yourselves, turn off your video if you'd like, talk however you want to talk, share as much as you want to share, but please know this is being recorded. Our replays will be posted on our YouTube channel, so we'll post them out on social media as well as on our YouTube channel, which I think Tiffany will put the link to our YouTube channel in the chat session. Please be respectful. These are difficult conversations, very intriguing and powerful conversations. So please be respectful in comments, in how you share your point of view, but please engage. We want to make sure that people are learning and sharing and being a part of these conversations. So you can also use the chat if you're not comfortable sharing out loud. Please use the chat. We will do our best to monitor as much as we can. And we're actually getting pretty good at this, monitoring that chat session. Anything else before I introduce Deloria, Tiffany?
No, that's great. Just look at all these lovely faces. Welcome, welcome, Team Live. And I'm excited for all our folks on Team Replay too who watch me. This is just such important work, and we just appreciate you all for being here and being part of the solution. So
yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. I mean, 30 seconds more. I am so grateful to every single one of you who shows up with us, who watches these replays, who shares. I mean, this has grown into something bigger and better than I think I had hoped and anticipated. So thank you to each and every one of you for showing up with us. Truly, truly appreciate it. And now, Miss Deloria. So our guest today is Deloria Nelson Steele. She is the president of Authentic Culture and Engagement Solutions, better known as ACE. ACE is a dynamic consulting firm that focuses on providing solutions to companies who want to enhance and strengthen their culture through authentic engagement and inclusion. Dee was recently the managing director of diversity and inclusion for Charles Schwab and Company, where she led the national inclusion efforts of the firm. She's a published author and truly an amazing speaker who has worked professionally in HR for more than 25 years with various Fortune 500 companies, including Walt Disney World. Her personal brand is positive energy, courage, authenticity, and uplifting spirit. She does workshops, keynote speaking engagements. Her commitment to DEI stems from her personal mission statement, which encapsulates helping people find and leverage their unique gifts. Wow, she's an amazing woman. In her spare time, she loves writing poetry, spoiling her twin granddaughters, and is on the farm with her husband, children, and adorable goats. Goats, people, how much better can she get? And so with that said, I'm going to pass it on to Deloria. Welcome, Deloria, and we are very grateful to have you here. Thank you for spending your Friday afternoon with us.
Absolutely. I'm absolutely happy to be here. I think it's just a great time to just reflect. I'm in an awesome mood. And I think we just have so many things to celebrate, right? In the midst of crazy and pandemic and racial strife and unemployment, we're still here. And so I really believe if we're here, we have a purpose. And I think it's important for us to find and live out that purpose. And so I'm excited to be here and to talk about of Black women, of rising in the midst of oppression, of the beauty and the resilience of Black women, because it is something we've always known, we've always lived, we've always contributed. I think in some ways it's being highlighted a little more, but there's still a lot of work to be done collectively. And so I'm just happy to be here.
So thank you. And I'm going to let you sort of lead the conversation, however you wanted to start it. I know that there were questions earlier on LinkedIn about your connection with Disney, and I'm sure that will be part of the conversation that you bring in. But this is a very unique conversation. You know, there are so many stereotypes behind that Black woman, and I don't think people truly understand the beauty, strength, and resilience of a Black woman.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think if we think back, I think it started forever ago, right? I mean, if we think about the great kings and queens of Africa, right? Queen Nefertiti, in a lot of ways that we were in leadership positions. And so, or we look at our parents. I mean, my mom was always amazing to me, right? She was, you know, a single parent. She was married for a while, but her and my dad didn't make it. But she did everything. I mean, she was that superwoman. She went back to school. She got her PhD. She spent so much time nurturing us and having us know and believe that there was absolutely nothing that we couldn't accomplish. She was my biggest cheerleader, still is. I'm getting super excited because she's actually moving in with us. She closes her house on December 21st. So we'll have 3 generations. And it's hard because, I mean, she's super Miss Independent, but she's coming to live with us. And so I'm super excited about that. She is truly my shero. She was always a very independent-minded kind of, I'll do it my way. And I think if we even go back and we think about Sojourner Truth, Ain't I a Woman? I mean, we just have always had the courage to stand and to speak our truth, to speak truth to power. I mean, Madam C.J. Walker, you know, the first millionaire. We've just always said, if it needs to be done, we'll jump in and do it, right? We've never been ambivalent about working hard or leading or being in the forefront. It's really interesting. There was a study of Center for Talent Innovation did a study on kind of what women want at work. And then they did something about Black women. And what was really interesting, they talked about on the corporate front, that we're not ambivalent about success. So as they interviewed people, there were white women that was like, I'm not really sure I want this promotion or I want to be in this position. Black women were never ambivalent. We were always like, yeah, we want the promotion. We want to be the CEO. We want to be the leader. But not because we were self-serving, because we needed that for our communities, for our families, for our ability. And if you even go back into the slavery part, which is painful, but it was real, we had to leave because we were separated, right? They would take our husbands, change their names and sell them. And so we had to be that foundation and still be able to love and nurture and build. And so I think so much of it is historical. And I think we've done it so long that we forget that we are magic, right? You know, people laugh about Black girl magic, and it's not magic. It's really hard work, but we contribute on so many forefronts. I want to share a few statistics, even from an educational. In the Lean In report, there's a Lean In report on Black women in corporate America, but Black women enroll in college at higher rates than men overall, and most notably at higher rates. Okay, I give myself an F, sorry. I always unplug my phone, but I didn't do it, so I get
keeping it real, right?
The 2020 gift that keeps giving.
Anyway, it says Black women enroll in college at higher rates than men overall, and most notably at higher rates than white men. Between 2004 and 2014, the share of Black women with a bachelor's degree or higher increased by 24%. So we're getting the education. We're doing the work. As far as starting our own businesses, the increase of Black women starting their own businesses is like 600%. So we're just like, you know what? If it's not there, we'll create it. We've always been at the carried social change really literally on our backs. I mean, and if you think about what happened in the last election, and it doesn't really matter what side you're on, Black women are the reason that we are going to have a change in administration, right? And for the first time, not only did we do the work, but we learned how to negotiate and stand in our power. In the past, we would just do it, right? It was what we needed to do. We would do it. We've been organizing, voting, and getting out to vote. A couple of my friends of Latasha Brown and Deborah Scott, one runs Black Voters Matter, one runs of Georgia Stand Up, but they have been just working out there for years. And it's like, we see it now, but they've been on the ground for 15 years, you know, like in 2004 and 5, when nobody really understood what was going on. And we do it, once again, not because we're selfish. We do it because we want to see our communities improve. And like everything, unfortunately, we're being hit higher by COVID-19. We're being laid off more. We're being economically impacted more. So it's this kind of dual thing that's, I don't know, it's a dichotomy that is beautiful and sad simultaneously, if that makes sense. It's beautiful because we continue to rise and shine and do all of this great stuff, but it's sad because we can still continue to be oppressed. I mean, when you think about representation in corporate America, we're overrepresented in minimum wage position and almost non-existent in executive positions, right? So it's this beautifully scary conglomeration of, we continue to do all this work and show love and do beautiful things, but not really get the opportunities to really shine the way that we should. And I wonder sometimes, what would happen if we actually were given some of the same shots as other counterparts? I mean, the leadership is there and we show it, whether it's in church or at home or in these nonprofits, right? We show that we can create a ground game, that we can create leaders, all of the above. But it's just, I don't know what it is why we still don't get those same opportunities. But once again, we're not going to stop doing it. We're resilient. And I do think we need to, someone put a question in, I appreciate that. Linda said, women in general are underrepresented. How can I as a white woman create space? Yeah, we need allyship, right? So when you get into that room, and it's great that women are there. So, you know, I think I recognize that women haven't made it either. So I'm not saying that there's parity, but what I'm saying is it's clearly documented that Black women are the least supported, the least of, have the least number of mentors and all of those things. So what I would say to white women, if you get in that space, look around, and if you don't see other women of color or Black women, bring it up and just say, hey, I'm happy to be here. And I know that we're making progress with women, but there is something called intersectionality, and white women and Black women don't experience the world in the same way, and definitely don't experience corporate America the same way. So I appreciate her bringing that up. Yes, stand in the gap, because we will always be partners with everyone, but we need that support. Definitely the mentoring, the coaching. There's some statistics about, we usually don't have the same level of support from our leaders. We don't have sponsors. I mean, I even have a personal story, and it's so funny. And I think some of it is, it's a good thing, but it's a bad thing. We're so selfless that we're doing everything for other people, and we often forget about ourselves, right? I mean, I was working at Schwab. I was helping with a mentoring program. We were doing things with UCF, and then we expanded it to HBCU, and we brought Bethune-Cookman students in, and we created a college to careers program. We were doing all these things, and we were always speaking with them about mentorship and sponsorship. And one day I was like, Dee, you don't have a mentor or a sponsor. What are you doing? And it was kind of funny, but sad, because I was so busy building everybody up. And I said, let me stop a little bit. And so I stopped, and I said, okay. And so I got a mentor, and then I got a sponsor, which the difference is, mentors you kind of talk to and they can help you, but sponsors really stand in the gap. Sponsors can say, I would hire that person. So a sponsor is usually higher up in the organization. You've worked with them directly, so they can vouch for your work. And what was so exciting, once I did that, that's when I got promoted to the managing director of diversity and inclusion. In all sincerity, it probably would not have happened had I not stopped and went about going about getting a sponsor and a mentor. And I also think we have to learn how to ask for help. I had been fortunate to work on a special project, and I had gotten an opportunity to go to London with the company. We were doing an investigation. In that position, or in that special kind of investigation, I got exposure to one of our executive VPs, someone I typically wouldn't have gotten exposure to. But it's just different. People at higher levels, they operate differently than we do. So when I was thinking about wanting to go for this position, and I called her, she's like, what do you need? Who do I need to call? I'm like, oh. And I told her what I needed, and she made the call. And I'm sure that was one of the reasons I got the position. So the other thing I would say is ask for help. I think sometimes people look at Black women so independent and strong that they don't think we need any help, right? Because we go through the world with a certain kind of cadence and of confidence because we have to. But it doesn't mean that we don't have the world on our shoulders. I remember just showing up, but being so burdened down. I remember, like, probably feels like 10, 15 years ago, I was a single mom. I had a son who was having seizures. He had been diagnosed with mood disorder. And so between having rages and seizures, and I had 3 kids all at different schools, by the time I would get to work, I was tired, but I just kind of kept pushing. And, you know, I've always been pretty authentic. And when a few people heard my story, they were like, Dee, I had no idea that you were dealing with all that. You're showing up, you're being positive, you're helping everybody, and nobody could see it. And I think it's that kind of never let them see you sweat. But I also think that can be dangerous, right? Because we can try to be so strong and be so many things to so many people that we are really maybe depressed, maybe suffering from anxiety, and we're not getting help because people don't know that we need the help. So one of the things I learned by being a single parent, a parent of a child with special needs, is to ask for help, right? To ask for help, to be transparent. I wrote a book, it's out now, it's called From Six Figures to Food Stamps to Six Figures, The Laugh, Lessons, and Blessings of the Recession. And I tell my story about how I had to just keep moving because I needed to make sure, you know, Mama Bear had to make sure the cubs were fed. But once it was all said and done, I had to kind of go, woosah. And I got laid off. But when I tell you that was the best thing ever, right? Because I finally was able to rest. I was able to rest. I was able to reflect. I was able to go on school field trips. The funniest thing is, I'm not sure the kids noticed, right? I mean, I put a funny story in there, and this is true. I've never liked dark meat chicken, right? So I don't like the legs and the thighs, but those of us who shop know that's the cheapest, that's the least expensive. So, I mean, once again, we're on this budget. I was like, you know, the kids didn't notice though. They just noticed that I was more present, and they really appreciated that. And the food stamp story is really funny because I really do believe in divine order. So I was like, I think I'm fine. My son Amir, he's 18 now. He was in a private school. And I was like, man, how am I going to keep him in the school? And the administrator was like, Dee, go apply for this step up program. And I was like, they're not going to give it to me, whatever. And then, you know, I had the unemployment and I had the SSI because my son and the seizures, and it wasn't much money coming in, but I was, you know, juggling and making things work. And then I was like, I don't think I need food stamps. I'm like, well, it won't hurt. Okay, I'll get food stamps. And so I get the food stamps. So I go into the office to apply for, it's called the Step Up Scholarship. So I could keep my son at the school. I think he was in like 4th or 5th grade at the time, probably 3rd or 4th. And I go in and I said, ma'am, you know, I want to apply for the scholarship. And she was like, ma'am, you made too much money, because they look at the income from the year before. And at that time I was making almost 6 figures. And I said, but ma'am, that was a year ago. It seems like forever ago. I'm sure you have something now. And she said, the only way you would qualify is if you got some kind of public assistance. I was like, pow, I get food stamps, right? And because of that, and me not being so proud, me submitting, I was able to get the scholarship for my son Amir, and he was able to stay at the private school. You know, the other thing I would say, and I say this to everybody, we have to be careful at how people want to label social programs, because that also is a lie. And the reason I say that, did anybody turn back in their stimulus? If you turn back in your stimulus, either raise your hand or put in your chat that you say, oh, I'm not going to take this stimulus. Anybody do that? No. Do businesses ever turn down help or loans? No. Help is help is help is help. And I think people like to label it so people will feel bad, right? So you want to label food stamps differently than you label stimulus checks, than you label corporate welfare or farming help. It's all the same. So I just think lean into it, and do what you need to do until you can do what you want to do. There's no shame in it. And so I was glad that I finally kind of humbled myself enough to get it, because I'm like, you've been working since you're 15. I have been contributing to it, right? And the amount of money that people get in food stamps is only a microcosm of the bailouts that big corporations get. Trust me. So if you need help, take advantage of it, and be bold and proud about it, and share with other people how they can get help. I've been doing a lot of talking, but I see a lot of comments. So Suman, do you want to read me some?
That's
Yeah.
lit.
Oof. Girl, there's so much amazing stuff here. So it says women in general are underrepresented. So we had that conversation. It's hard to shine when there are still so many unfair perceptions. Bravo to you, Deloria, for standing out and standing up. Is there any chance we can, yes, the lean in report that you referenced.
Yes.
We will make sure to get that from you so we can put it out there. Someone has asked for that
It's
link to it.
because it really just documents what we felt, right? So I think that's what was exciting about it. You know, we felt this way, and you kind of say to your sister, girlfriend, girl, you know, they're not, you know, and you try so hard to not be that stereotype, right? One of the stereotypes that I've always avoided, I think, was probably the angry one. I think because I'm a pretty warm person and I'm pleasant and I smile, that one I didn't really have to deal with much. But the hair thing, I mean, listen, I'm not going to say the company's name, but they had appearance guidelines and we couldn't wear locks. I mean, I didn't have locks back then, but they had appearance guidelines. But I remember when I was pregnant, my hair was doing crazy stuff and I was natural doing 2-strand twists. And I remember somebody inspecting my damn hair, right? How humiliating is that? I don't think I was humiliated then, because I was just like, because, you know, they had these crazy appearance guidelines, but, you know, and I was doing a session yesterday and I told people, I said, be careful at what you call professional, because professional can be relative, right? A lot of times what they call professional with hair is never Black or ethnic looking hair. That's why we have to have the Crown Act, right? Everything that's unprofessional is certain things that are natural to other people. And so we just have to be careful. We've assigned a lot of meaning to things that aren't real, right? Professional really should be about behavior, right? What did I actually do? Because how can my hair be professional or not, right? I mean, you think about tattoos. I mean, I'm not in that era, so to speak, so I don't have any tattoos. But how could a tattoo keep somebody from contributing at the highest level? It can't, right? So we have created all of these norms. And if we tell ourselves the truth, the norms were built on who was in charge at the time, right? So a lot of the norms are based on white men. And so, you know, if our hair is not like theirs, if our skin is not like theirs, they're all of these things, and they've been passed on generation after generation. And corporations with all these appearance guidelines. I mean, you know, you've read the articles about the schools where they would make the young people cut their locks or say they couldn't graduate. How ridiculous and crazy is that? But we have to stand up. They say, when you know better, you do better. Now that we get it, when we're at companies and you hear them saying things that don't make sense, challenge them now. Everybody has to stand in their power. And I've worked in HR 25 years. So I'm not saying to over-rotate, because I mean, we need to feed our families, but write an anonymous letter. There is power, honey, in anonymous letters, because they still have to investigate it. So if you feel like you work at a company that they'll be retaliatory, send a damn letter. I mean, I investigated anonymous letters all the time, because the only thing is anonymous is who sent it. It's never anonymous about who you calling out, right? You know, so-and-so said such and such, or they're trying to push in this policy that I feel like is not fair. Use your voice. I mean, because I think, and I get it, I understand the fear, but things don't change when we don't bring it to some people's attention. Because the other thing I would think, because I teach unconscious bias, it's not always intentional. Right? I don't think there are all these people, you know, going, we're going to discriminate against all the Black women and all the women. A lot of it is there are so many ways that we've been primed and we've been taught that certain things fit and certain things don't, that people are just repeating it. And until we start educating people about, wait a minute, and challenging it, it won't change. So I would say stand in your power and challenge it. When you hear somebody saying, well, I don't think her hair is professional. What does that mean? Or she has an attitude. Can you describe the behaviors, right? We have to speak truth to power, and we all can be allies for each other. You know, I talk about unintended consequences. And when I did my session, you know, there are things about accents. Studies tell you that British accents are thought to be just so wonderfully intelligent. Hispanic and Caribbean accents are thought to not be intelligent. And when people have accents, they don't listen to them as much, right? We need to speak truth to power. The next time you're in a meeting and they go, well, you know, she has an accent, so I'm not sure that she should do the presentation. Well, why not? Right? We understand exactly what
You're good. Do whatever you need.
you know, so I just think we have to stand up and we have to be our sisters keepers, right? We can't say, well, there's only room for one. So, oh, well, I don't want to rock the boat. You know, they've never had a woman here before and I'm here, so I just need to. No, you're there for a purpose. You don't get a seat at the table to sit. You get a seat at the table to work. So if you're there, you need to work and work on the behalf of everybody. The other thing I always say is the pie is large enough for everybody to get a slice. So the better we are, the more innovative we are, the more diverse we are, we can keep growing our share. And as it grows and as the company grows, there's more opportunities from everybody. It's not a zero-sum game. It's not like I win and someone loses. It's not us against corporations or us against white men. No, it's all of us just trying to create a space where we can be our authentic selves and bring our whole selves to work and not worry about having two jobs, right? Making you comfortable with me and doing my job. Can I just come and do my job?
Yeah. And I think, you know, it's not only, from my opinion, it's not only what happens in the workplace, but even media and all the industries that are surrounding in our world. You know, you were talking about accents. It's funny when we watch certain shows, when they speak proper unaccented English, there are no subtitles. But then you get somebody who's got a little bit of an accent and suddenly these subtitles in English pop up. And I wonder, I'm like, well, they're speaking English, so why did this character get subtitles and this character didn't get subtitles, right? So it's things like that too, where it's not just a one, it's multifaceted, the challenges that we have.
Multifaceted, and it's in every institution. When you talk about race, racism has permeated every institution that we touch. I know right after the George Floyd thing of a company, the Woo Company, they're a marketing company, asked me to talk about race. And it was like, it was just so deep. I mean, you had to go back, even the Star Spangled Banner, that third stanza of the poem talked about slavery. They took it out. But that is the root of how we were started as a country. And it doesn't mean I don't want to be here. People, oh, well, if you don't like America, go stop the foolishness. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. But to love a country is to point out what we need to do better, that we need to live up to our ideals, and we need to be the best version of ourselves necessary. And that takes work. It's continuous improvement. We all have to continually work on ourselves, and we need to continually work on our country. I mean, we don't tell our kids, oh, you've arrived. We keep working and we point out things because they're real and they're true. And if we will just acknowledge it and get over I'm saying you're bad or horrible. No, I'm just saying the reality of how we started was on the backs of a lot of people. I mean, Native Americans, I mean, come on, look at how they were treated and are still being treated. You know, I mean, we helped build this country, so we have every right to celebrate and critique. And I think that's what we need to realize. And it's very patriotic to want your country to be the best possible. So all of this, Jedi mind games that people try to play and say, well, if you say this, you're not patriotic. Let's not even play that game. I am patriotic. I love my country and I want her to be the best that she can possibly be. That's why I continue to speak truth to power and try to change it.
So Deloria, there's one comment here that sort of stood out for me. It says, I believe people are so scared of the repercussions. That's why they don't stand up for themselves. So everything that you're talking about, right? We all agree. We're seeing the sparkles, we're seeing the cheers and lots of nods. But the reality is that there are repercussions at times.
Oh, there is.
So how do we put, so how do we as individuals sort of bring all this up and have and deal with those retaliations, or do it in a way where we're not retaliated against? Or I'd love to get some insight on that.
have to be strategic like anything. I mean, you have to know who you're dealing with, understand the relationships that you have. If you know your leader is not trustworthy, you don't go to your leader. If you know several people have been having the same experience, you guys get together, right? There's power in numbers. Get together. Write an anonymous letter. You know, I haven't worked in HR. I think it's wonderful when you can go through the company and use their process, but sometimes that's not real. And so if it's not real, you have to go out around, you know, over, under, through, right? I mean, the EEOC is there, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Now, let me be honest, they take forever. Right, they take forever. I mean, I'm one of my best friends, and we laugh. One of my best friends is an investigator for the EEOC. It's like, how did y'all end up on different sides? But at least that's a way to get it started. And even if it doesn't come to fruition, they will at least get a notice that you have filed with the EEOC. That is going to give you more protection, because that is of now that they've been notified, you're protected in a sense from retaliation. Now, once again, I'm not saying that retaliation doesn't happen. It does. It is very real. And I hate to say it, it's almost human nature. For most people, retaliation is human nature, right? And whether the initial claim that you filed was proven to be true or not, you still can be retaliated against. So I would just say network, try to be smart, ask people. Sometimes people know. I know at all the companies I've worked, people would go, girl, that Black girl right there, she's real. She won't cover anything up. Go to that one in HR, right? People can get a sense of who they can talk to and who they can. So I would just say be smart, document, right? Because you have to stand in your truth. I remember I worked for a company years ago and they were just not treating me right. And it was crazy to me. It was a manufacturing company. And I was like, good grief. And then once I started standing up, there was an investigation. There was a big thing. And it kind of scared me. They were calling people the N-word. And then the guy that was trying to stand up for them, he was Hawaiian. So then they called him a pineapple N-word. And then the white guy that was trying to stand up, they called him an N-lover. I was like, did I just blink and go back? What year is this? And so when we were investigating it, it was a union environment. And at that point, I'll be honest, the union was corrupt. So it was a problem. And they were asking me what I thought. And I was like, you know, we need to investigate this. We need to do whatever. And they really got upset with me. Like, you know, you need to be objective. I said, I am being objective, but I'm also African-American. And you brought me here because I share a view that you won't get. If Black people don't feel safe in this company, it's a problem. Oh, they got really, really heated with me. And, you know, the people ended up acting up, really threatening the guys. I mean, they had security. It was a big mess. So they did end up getting fired and all of this, but they didn't like me after that. And then all of a sudden my leader was like, well, I've been getting feedback that, and I was like, from who? Well, I can't, well, who? Can you give me names? I was like, okay, so let me show you the game I played. It was kind of funny, but you know, one thing I have, my dad is a criminal defense attorney, and I'll say I got my moxie from my dad. You know how Beyonce says, I got my looks from Tina. I got my moxie from Dell. My dad's name was Delano. So I had a folder, and I had some, just say maybe 4 or 5 papers, and the rest of it was just white paper. It wasn't anything on it. And I had my folder, and he was like, I don't think things are going well. I said, I'm beginning to feel like I'm being discriminated against. And he was like, do you want to file a charge or not? And I opened my paper and I looked, I said, well, you know, I've been taking notes about some stuff that's been going on. Now peep it, half of it was blank. But you know, you get to learn how to play games. You know, he's playing games with me. And I said, not at this juncture. But you know, I'm just saying, I've been documenting things and everything was fine until this investigation. And now all of a sudden, he turned red and he was all hot, but they didn't bother me anymore. And I think I got a raise. And then I left because I knew that, you know, my time was up. That's the other thing. We need to know, for everything, there's a season, right? You have to know when it's time to go, right? And so when it's time to go, because you're not being treated fairly, your evaluations aren't fair, you feel like there's blatant discrimination, you feel like you're being retaliated against, you need to update your resume and start looking, right? And, you know, one of the things I offer in my business is I call it exit strategy negotiation. That's basically if they're treating you wrong, you know, take a check when you leave. And I help with that too, because they pay people all the time when they've mistreated them. And so I'm just saying, pay attention to your environment. But if you cannot be your whole self and it gets to that point, update your resume and start making moves. Try to change it, because I'm always the person that tries to change it internally. I'll be honest. I'll tell you the truth. I'll give you an opportunity to look at it and investigate it. But if there is no interest in making the workplace better for you, go somewhere else where you can shine. What else? Wow, 89 things in chat. I don't see them all.
Oh, there's so much. I've even lost track just reading everything here. Tiffany, you want to help me out? I have got.
Oh, this is great. So one of the things that came up recently, and I think this is important to talk about too, is how there's smaller companies in particular. There's kind of these politics or things, or where people are not accepted, and it's because of the politics. It's because they don't have a nepotism policy. There's so much bias. So I love that someone said examining companies' culture during the interview process.
Absolutely.
That's so important, and it's important that we know how we can be educated about that. So don't wait to get inside that before you find out how good or bad it is. That is key. We go in so many times with like these high hopes and thinking that the culture is one thing, but you just gave us some real good tips on how to know when it's not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And talk to people. Try to find someone that actually works there. The other thing is Glassdoor. I mean, there's a lot of ways now to fill out a little more information. Now, sometimes people on there are probably just venting, but do some research. Look at the board. Look at who's there. And even ask tough questions in an interview. If you ask a tough question and you get like bamboozled, so to speak, or treated bad, there's your answer right there, that the company is not very open. So, ask questions, examine that culture, and tell yourself the truth, because culture, and I say it all the time, that's why I have Authentic Culture and Engagement Solutions in the name of my company. There are so many cultures that are only written, but they're not lived. Real cultures are lived, and you should experience it and you should feel it. But you have to be authentic to be able to know what your culture is. They have these companies where they have leaders who only want yes people around them. That's always so dangerous. You don't want that. Like I told somebody, do you not want to tell the emperor that he's butt ass naked? I'll tell him.
That's why he got new clothes.
Right?
Now that I work for myself, I can, right? Because even when you're internal to a company and you're in a role where you're supposed to tell the truth, there is some politics that keeps you from being as transparent as you would like. And so I think we just have to tell ourselves the truth about the spaces that we're in and how much grace do we really have.
Yeah. And I also think it's sharing with your kids, right? So I have, as many of you know, I have a 16-year-old son and she'll be on Monday, 11-year-old daughter. So I was writing up a presentation on how you talk to difficult people. And one of the things was, is it good to have a yes people around you? And my son was like, oh my gosh, why would you not want yes people around you? I could get so much done if I had a yes person and not have to. Now he's 16,
right? But
that opened the door for such amazing conversation. He and I had such a deep conversation about where he stands, how he's thinking, what the impact is about having these yes people around them. So all the information that we talk here, share it with your kids, have these conversations with them, because they're the next generation coming up. We are hoping to clear these doors and make it a better workplace for them. But if they go into a workplace already knowing and aware of things, I wasn't aware of a lot of things. My first job, I was grateful to get that job. So I took the pittance of a salary that they offered me without questioning it at all, without even negotiating it, right? And so I didn't learn about all that until I got older and wiser. But now my son, he negotiates with me. He's one of my subcontractors in my little business, and he negotiates with me. And I'm like, I'm creating a little monster here, but I'm okay with it.
Exactly.
But have these conversations with your children, with kids around, the next generation coming up. They need to walk in already understanding what they're going to be dealing with.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's in the chat too. Ask for specific examples of how the company or what they value.
Absolutely.
Because body language tells a lot, even if you're virtual, how most of these interviews are being done. When people's face turns red, Deloria, like the man you talked about, there are tells. There are surefire tells, whether you're a candidate or you're on the other side interviewing. There are definite tells, and you have to be perceptive enough to lean into that and trust your gut. Because if something feels off, trust me, I lived this experience, it's off.
Oh yeah. And for everything, there's a season. Sometimes, once you take the job and you start doing it, you're like, oh, okay, they're not serious about this, and So then you kind of create your strategy, your exit strategy. Or maybe financially, you have to stay a little longer. Wait, someone said, Deloria, what would you tell your younger self when you were first starting out in HR?
Great question.
Wow, what would I tell my younger self? Keep speaking truth to power. And don't be shy about it. I was always tactful, but never really shy. It's kind of funny. My mom and sister used to say, oh, you're just too nice and people are going to walk over you. That never happened. I just have always chosen how I wanted to use my energy. So I don't get excited a lot, but I've always stood up. And so I think in standing up, it was hard in a lot of cases. Like even a couple of my first jobs, I could just tell that people thought I was too much, right? But I was being me. And so I would just say, keep speaking truth to power, you know? It was funny, there was another company I worked at and it was like manufacturing and they had we were hiring and, you know, certain companies, people didn't want to be bothered with the hiring. So they let me do all the hiring. So, because they didn't want to be bothered with it. They didn't want to be bothered with it. And at the time, as you know, African-Americans and people of color are always underemployed. And so it was a manufacturing facility. It was in Conyers, Georgia. And we were hiring. And a lot of the people that I was interviewing happened to be African-American. A lot of those people had degrees, but they were underemployed. So I'm hiring the best people. The hiring class was probably like 85% African-American. And now y'all didn't want to do hiring. Now y'all want to talk ish about who I hired. And they were like, well, Dee, we're concerned. I said, about what? I said, the quality of the candidates is there. And they were like, okay. And then there was another thing that happened where we had like a sales entrance or whatever. And then there was another entrance. And they were like, well, with the hiring, we don't want everybody coming in through the main entrance, have them come through the side of the back door. Now, you know, like I said, I got my moxie from my dad. I was like, you know, that really doesn't look good. It kind of reminds me of like the back of the bus because most of the people coming through are African-American. That's not a good message. Dee, you're always making and I was like, well, I'm just, you know, I'm here to share my observation. You can do with it as you like, you know? So once again, it was just all these signals like, you should be happy you're here. You know, Black girl, we gave you this job and now you want to, you know, push back. Yeah, because I want us to be a better company. And I'm telling you what the perception can be. And if I'm here and I have a perception that you may not have, you should appreciate it. So I think I just would have told my younger self, you're on the right track. Just because people may not appreciate you doesn't mean that you're off. And I often said, I've kicked down doors that I know I'll never walk through because I'm kicking them down for other people, for our kids, or for people 10, 20, 30 years behind me. And I see them walk through and I'm happy. And it's like, you know, I never was a VP in corporate America, but hell, I'm the president of my own company now. Check that. Right. So I'm just saying, you got to just speak truth to power. And I've mentored a lot of people and I wouldn't change anything, but just be strategic about it. I mean, I would hate for someone to stand up and then get fired and not be able to pay their bills. Just be strategic about it. Find someone that you can trust and know what you need to do to maneuver.
I have a question, just being in the HR space and having this experience as a Black woman myself in the workplace about people perceiving you as challenging, and you touched on this a bit, or perceiving you as negative, or why do you always have to push back? But I'm watching you don't tell my peers this who don't look like me. What would you say to people who are going through this right now about being told they have an attitude, being told they're negative? Like, what advice would you give to people outside of when you just know it's time to go?
Yeah, I would kind of take a deep breath, right? I probably wouldn't respond right then. And I would say be strategic about your comeback. And I would literally find some research about stereotypes and what is aggressive behavior. And I would just have a real dialogue. Listen, I've heard you say that 2 or 3 times. It feels like you're just saying that to me. I'm not saying that it's intentional, and maybe you don't realize that, but a lot of what you're sharing to me is stereotypically what people say to Black women. I'm not pushing back any more than anybody else. I'm not doing it in a way that is disruptive, but I have an opinion. I have some experience, and I'm just trying to share that. And I would hate that me being honest is something that could be seen as negative. So you just turn that ish right around on them. And, you know, but be real, because I think if you call somebody out like that, they'll stop and think, right? And if you do it in a sincere way, because I always have, even when it was difficult, I was always real, people really will appreciate it. Now, the people that just don't care won't. And someone mentioned microaggressions, right? And that's what happens. I added microaggressions to my unconscious bias class. And like I said, microaggressions, I call it death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? It's little, but it hurts. And what people don't realize is you may have 20 microaggressions in 10 days. And it just nicks at you and nicks at you. The one that, we talked about the most is, for Blacks is, oh, you're so articulate. And it's like, I got a master's degree and I have a communications degree. So should I split verbs like a prep chef? But it's a lot of times, even though it seems complimentary, it's because you're assuming that Black people are not articulate. And so, the same thing, the women in the group always has to take the notes. It's just all of these things, or the invisibility factor. I say something and everybody's listening, and then Jim says, and they're like, oh, what a great idea. But we can help each other out, right? Because we're all in those meetings. So when you hear Tiffany say something and nobody says anything, and then Bob says, they go, whoa, that sounds just like what Tiffany was saying. We have to do that. We have to be our brothers and sisters keepers. Same thing with introverts and extroverts, right? Depending on the culture of the company, extroverts can suck up all the air in the room. We like to talk over ourselves and all of this, but the introvert may have the answer. But if you don't understand how to draw them out, you won't get it. So if you're a leader, you have to learn to lead everyone. So maybe you send the deck in advance to your introvert team member, or maybe you don't make a decision in that actual meeting. You just say, okay, I've gotten some good feedback. Let me take it under consideration, right? Because if you do it real time in that meeting with all this loud talking or whatever, your introvert with the right answer may not say a word. So we have to give grace, and diversity is about being different, and expand that to everybody. Just the one that talks the most doesn't have all the wisdom. That quiet person has the answer, but we extroverts get on their nerves and they just like, woo, it was just too much going on. I'm not even going to talk today.
That's so true. And I'm so glad you touched on introverts versus extroverts, because I'm like a high extrovert, and in these scenarios, it gives me high energy, but I exude so much of it that I'm just like, I need to like decompress, because it's like a lot. It drains me. It's wonderful and beautiful as it is, but people don't also think about that in the workplace. They're like, well, so-and-so's always talking, or why are they always so bubbly? Or how come this person never speaks up in a meeting? Like, we cannot project onto other people what we think is supposed to happen. That's how these things start to trickle down. So I'm so glad you brought up these great examples.
Love people where they are. I mean, I really think it's about love. And people say, Dee, that's crazy. I used to start saying lead with love. Love is an action word, right? And sometimes it's tough love, whereas I have to tell my employer, I don't think you're treating me fairly, or I don't think you're treating the LGBT group fairly. I've seen this, this, and this. But it's love because you want people to get better. Right? We chastise our kids in love because we know they can do better, or we want them on the right path. So, love is not just saying yes and everything is wonderful. It's speaking truth to power, because if you love a company, you want them to be the best that they can be. And you want them to live up to the values, the mission and values that's on that wall. And when they're not, you got to bring it up.
Wow, so much goodness. Like, I'm just take a breath. That's awesome. There's a lot. This might very well be the most. We've had some lit chats before, but I think this is lighting up as much as I've ever seen it. I'm taking in all these nuggets myself. I think it's amazing, and it's wonderful. I appreciate you all for sharing everything. I want to point out something that I'm scrolling past in the chat too. It says, I know that articulate is perceived as a microaggression, but I interview so many inarticulate college graduates of all races that when I find someone who can string together a clear sentence, I put that in my interview notes. How do I avoid that being perceived as a microaggression? That is like vulnerability and truth right there, but that's real. And these are the conversations we need to have. What do you think about that?
I think maybe just saying they have excellent communication skills. And I know that's kind of going around it, but I just think it's that articulate word, unfortunately, has been used so much from a negative kind of a backhanded compliment, that I would probably just say excellent communication skills. Because I think communication skills and articulation are different, right? I think articulate, when people say it, is that you're pronouncing things correctly. That's kind of how I see articulation. Excellent communication skills is bigger than that. So I think that would be a distinction that I think you could make of, and I get what you're saying, because yeah, it's, these chat kids, they LOLing and, IJKing through the conversations.
Oh, that's great. I love all of this. So I have put some resources in the chat. So just want to throw it out there to save that. We will post this when we repost this. Any other things that you would leave us with, or there's certainly been a host of wonderful wisdom. Thank you so much. But any parting thoughts?
Sure. You are enough, right? Where you are, who you are, what you're doing now, it's enough. And there is a divine order always working. The tough times, I always say, turn your lessons into ladders. Of so many things that I went through have positioned me to be who I am and where I am today. So don't beat yourself up, right? Be the best version of yourself that you can be. Learn. Don't be selfish with your knowledge. So share whatever you've learned. And just keep pushing, and just know that, out of all of the sperm and the eggs that could have met, you came together for a reason, right? Seriously, there is a purpose for you being here, and you have something that nobody else has. A lot of people say, oh, but I can't do it. You don't have to do it that way. Do it your way. There really is something that you're supposed to give to the world that if you don't do it, there's going to be a deficit. So I would just say, follow your passions, tell yourself the truth, and don't be afraid to pivot, right? If it doesn't work, change. We get to start over. And there's nothing wrong with that. You get to change your mind. But I'm just saying, I just see all the comments in the chat and all the beauty and the sharing. We're pretty awesome. So celebrate yourself. If you kind of fall down, just get back up, be resilient, and just keep pushing. But always be authentic and tell yourself the truth. And don't have such a high standard for yourself that you can never make it, right? Don't beat yourself up. Some of us are so hard on ourselves. Also, learn how to take a compliment, right? When people are telling you something, some of us, oh, well, thank you, right? People want to build you up and they want to share the impact that you've had on them. Just say thank you and just keep living and loving. We are going to get where we need to. I have a lot of faith in humanity, and we act ugly sometimes, but you know what? That's life. We push past it and we just keep moving. And I just feel really good about where we're going. I know it's been some tough times, but I really think a lot of this happened so we needed to have a mirror. I think the Creator let this happen so we could put a mirror to ourselves to see how ugly and out of whack we have become. And now that we saw the ugly, we gathered together and said, enough, we're going to shift. And I don't care about the few people that are just really out there being ugly and being racist. There are more of us that get it and understand our shared humanity that don't. And we're going to come together. And I really do think love always wins. So.
Amazing. What a great way to end the week, people. I can't even tell you, Deloria, how much I needed to hear all that you said today. It's amazing. You are amazing. The comments and the chat is literally blowing up. I think you have shared so much positivity, but in a way that's realistic, right? So approach the challenges that you have, and the actionable items that you shared with us are fantastic. We typically stay on another 10-15 minutes unrecorded.
Okay.
So does anyone have any questions that they want to share on a recorded session? Otherwise, we can go to unrecorded. Anything? Well, thank you, Deloria. It was a pleasure having you.
My pleasure.
Appreciate you so much. And like I said, this is a fantastic way to end the Friday.
Absolutely.
Anyone who needs a motivational talk, listen to this replay. Put it somewhere where you can get to it when you're having a tough day, because she spoke amazing truths.
Get my book. It'll really inspire you. There's an ebook that's only 99 cents. So if you're on a budget, I get it. But it just talks about kind of the struggles and how to rebuild and pivot. And it's very encouraging, but real, because a lot of us are pivoting now. I don't know who on the call has been laid off. It happened to me, but we have to kind of woosah and then get back up there. And there's some steps that you can do it. And we can learn and be graceful as we go through challenges.
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to be shopping for that book. That's for sure. All right, friends. Thank you. Have a fabulous weekend.
Yes, don't forget to save the chat. And I did put the YouTube channel in there. I will post that when we, for our team replay folks as well. And there's also a link to register. So please like, share, comment, so that we can keep these great conversations going. We appreciate you all. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.